Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. Appreciate your patronage on SIFTD. If you are not a SIFTD member, we really appreciate it if you could link your Twitch account with your Amazon Prime account and then go to the SIFTD channel and subscribe. That gets Shane $2.50 a month. It's easy to re-up every month. All you have to do is click one button. You don't have to link again. You're already linked. So just try to remember to do that. It costs you nothing. You are not paying us. Prime is paying us. Our first question from SIFTD from my fellow baby Norix Nessie. What game do you think will sell more by the end of this year? Call of Duty Black Ops 4 or Red Dead Redemption 2? How big of an impact do you think EA moving Battlefield 5 release date back a month will have on it and the other two games? Glad to have you back. Call of Duty sells 18 to 22 million every holiday. Bad versions do 18, good versions do 22. We have no reason to suspect that Treyarch has made a game any different than Black Ops 1, 2, and 3, all of which got very good review scores. For Treyarch and Call of Duty in particular, 85 is good enough. And I think Call of Duty Black Ops is highly likely to get an 85 review score. So an inline Treyarch game would sell 22 million, but Call of Duty is launching October 12th instead of its historic November 4th to 10th release date. They usually come out on a Tuesday. That's the Tuesday between November 4th and 10th. This year, they're coming out on a Friday, October 12th. So it's more than 3 weeks early. And that gives them, so 3 weeks and 3 days early, that gives them a bigger window of sales before the competition launches. Typically when Battlefield comes out, it launches before Call of Duty. This one was going to launch a week later, now got delayed a month. That adds about 1.5 million to Call of Duty sales. Call of Duty has 3 extra weeks of sales this year, which should pull forward another 1 million or 1.5 million units. Not that they're selling more in the aggregate, it just earlier means more people have a chance to buy them this year instead of waiting to next. And it gives them more full priced units because discounting starts typically on Black Friday, which the earliest it can be is November 22nd. It's always 23rd. Now the earliest it can be is November 23rd because Thanksgiving is the 4th Thursday of the month. Just happens that November 1, I believe, is a Thursday this year. So this is the earliest Thanksgiving can be and the earliest Black Friday can be. So the window expanded a lot. And after Black Friday, typically there's discounting and game sales go up, but dollars go down. So all in, I'd say Call of Duty could sell pretty comfortably 25 million and possibly 27. Let's compare and contrast that to Red Dead, which for some reason Matt Piscatella, who's the nicest guy in the world at NPD, has predicted will be the biggest selling game this year. Now in fairness, Matt is saying for NPD purposes, so he's saying US sales only, physical only. So remember, Call of Duty is a global seller. It's World War, whatever it is, it's Black Ops. But it's global warfare in the modern era, so it works in other countries. Red Dead's a Western, which is more uniquely a US-centric, US historical type setting. So Matt might be right. I don't think he's right about US physical either. But Red Dead last time, here's a quiz. I'm gonna give you guys 3 seconds to answer this. How many copies did Red Dead sell in 2010? It came out in May. Between May launch 2010 and March 31st, 2011. Guess. 8.5 million. So I just gave you an NPD number, but 8.5 million. So let's say that, yeah, but every other Grand Theft Auto sold 25 million its first year, and this latest one did 95 million. So maybe Red Dead will do 4 times 8.5 million over its lifetime. I'd actually accept that. I'd say 35 is a reach, but it's possible that it sells 35 million globally lifetime. It's not selling 25 million or 27 million in holiday. Not happening. So my bias is Red Dead sells between 12 and 15. It's gonna get a great review because those guys are really good developers. Rockstar San Diego, they got a 95 last time. If you remember, I just said it came out in 2010. They've had 8.5 years to make this game. It's going to be freaking flawless. It just is. They're good. They pay attention. The Rockstar management cares. This game wouldn't have launched if it wasn't just great. I will be shocked if it gets below a 90 review score. I'll be mildly surprised if it gets below a 95. I think it's going to be a 95, possibly a 97. So it's going to absolutely kick the crap out of everything else that comes out at holiday, except possibly Fallout, which also will probably get in the 90s. And that's going to help sales, so it's going to sell really well. The difference is it's a Western. It's a prequel. It takes place in the 1890s, I think, or 1880s. So it takes place early, which means the weapons are going to be like Winchester rifles and 6-gun revolvers, and I guess you'll have a Gatling gun or something, but you're not going to have helicopters, you're not going to have nuclear weapons, you're not going to have meth labs. So I just don't think it is going to be as engaging as Grand Theft Auto, so I expect it will sell a fraction of GTA, and my forecast for 12 to 15 million is about half of what GTA sold in its first, its launch quarter. So I think that's really a big number and very respectable, and I think Take-Two will be super happy, but the answer is I think Black Ops sells more. And EA moving Battlefield costs Battlefield at least $1.5 million. The most direct beneficiary is Black Ops, because Black Ops and Battlefield are similar games, first-person shooter, military theme, and so I think that there's not much overlap between players of those games. That you either buy one or you buy the other. And if you get a good version of Black Ops 85 and you don't know what Battlefield's going to be, I think 1.5 million people say, screw it, I'm just going to buy Black Ops and deal with Battlefield later. If Battlefield gets a 95, when it comes out, then I'll eat my words and they'll take some share. But why did it get delayed? Because it wasn't getting a 95. So who knows? I'd say the over-under on Battlefield's at 80. And the delay is because they tried to make the game in 2 years. They should have taken 3. They didn't finish a lot of little tiny things, and they needed 4 weeks to scramble to fix the stuff they didn't have an extra year to do. Treyarch had 3 years. I think 3 years versus 2-year development means a lot. So my bias is 80 or below for Battlefield. If it gets a 72 or something, forget it. Call of Duty benefits immensely. And you guys may say, well, that helps Red Dead too. Sure, but it's not, nobody in the world is like, I'm only gonna buy one game and it's either Red Dead or Battlefield. There's guys who are like, I wanna play both and I only have $60. Okay, that benefits Red Dead temporarily. If you really wanna play Battlefield, you'll buy it when you have another $60. So I don't see them as direct substitutes the same way I see Battlefield and Call of Duty. You're not buying both of those. That's just dumb. I'd say that's a 2% overlap, where Red Dead and any other game is a 25% overlap. So, if you didn't buy Battlefield when Red Dead came out, you're going to buy it later if it's good. You're not going to buy it if it's bad. You're going to buy Call of Duty later. So, again, I don't think it helps Red Dead at all that Battlefield slipped. I do think it helps Call of Duty. Our next question from Patreon from Evan Adams. Hey, Evan. Evan follows me on Twitter. He's setting a good example for the rest of you. I am convinced we are heading into a recession in 2019. What does the gaming industry hedge in such times? Run, stay, best of breed. Look, I'm not convinced we're heading into a recession. I'm far from a macroeconomist, but the leading indicator of a recession is the yield curve. You're going to see an inverted yield curve. And I'm not going to bore you guys with all it means, but you're going to see long-term interest rates drop below near-term interest rates. And it may happen temporarily, but it's really not happening because we have full employment. And with full employment and solid GDP growth, I think it was 4.2 or something last quarter, that's good enough that's not recessionary. It's actually, the trend is exactly opposite. Now, you might have a political view that, our government is doing a poor job, but the truth is that when you have a giant tax cut and you don't cut spending, recession is, I'm going to lecture you guys, recession is GDP growth turns negative. And GDP is the sum of consumption, investment, and government spending. So consumption goes up when employment goes up. So we have record unemployment, so consumption should continue to go. Investment goes up when we have excess capital after we buy all the stuff that we want to consume. So that's fine because there are more people employed, more paychecks, more money in the system. And government spending is the trick. And so with the tax cut, we got no change in government spending. We are going to generate $1 trillion deficit this year, the biggest ever. So I know that we had the question about making social commentary when you're entertaining. So all you people who vote Republican, just please look up what the Republican platform is, which is small government. Low taxes, small government. We have low taxes, big government. The biggest government in the history of government. Biggest deficit in the history of government. So we have high spend, low tax, and that spend is what makes GDP go up. So until you get meaningful cuts in government spending, I actually disagree with your premise. Deficit spending is great for the economy, great for the market. It's not good for our grandchildren because they got to pay it back, but it's really good for us right now. So I don't agree with you, but anyway, if you think the market's going to go down, get out of the market. I'm not going to tell you to buy a video game stock and tell you that Activision or EA will go up when the market drops 10%. That's not going to happen. If the market goes down, they're going to go down. All right, our next question from Patreon from Con Win or Hoyne. Con, go on Twitter and tell me how to say your name. I think it's Win, but who knows. Dear Pac, been a big fan since your GT days, and I was delighted to hear you on NPR. I love NPR. I give them $365 a year. I encourage you to do the same thing. I used to listen to them when I drove all the time, but support public radio. They're awesome. Do you know why publishers and developers are so secretive about their budgets? Isn't that stuff supposed to be public knowledge and divulged in financial reports? Boy, I don't think I knew that they were secretive about their budgets, but the only company that is even remotely opaque about development budgets is Take-Two. And when I say remotely, they're actually okay too. They won't give you head count for like the Rockstar division. They won't tell you. It used to be 900 people, and it was 700, then 900, and I think that's about 5 years old. So it could be like 1,000 or 1,100. I don't think it's 10,000. But there's 4 Rockstar studios. So it used to be, like roughly 400 guys in Edinburgh and 200 each in London, Toronto, San Diego or something. That'd get you to about 1,000. That's where I really think it is now. I don't think they have a 5th studio. Maybe they do, but I don't think so. But everybody else, like if you were to ask Electronic Arts, hey, you just bought Respawn, how many people they have? They would be like 350, 300, 250. They'll give you the number. The rest of it, you can go to gamasutra.com, which is kind of the game developer's website, and they publish an annual salary survey every year. And I don't even know how many people participate, 10,000, I mean a lot. And so they give you very good numbers, like, graphic artists cost, $50,000 and level designers are 100 and lead designers are 120 and studio heads are 150, and you can kind of average it all out, and the rule of thumb is 100,000 per head per person per year. And so if you have a studio with 200 guys and gals, I always say guys, I mean this generically as all people, 200 people, and you pay them 100,000, well, 200 times 100 is 20 million bucks a year. And if your game takes 3 years, so let's go with Treyarch, roughly 200 people, roughly 100,000 a person, always 3 years, 60 million bucks. End of story. That's what Call of Duty costs to make, period. And if you're Rockstar and you have Rockstar San Diego, 100,000 times 200 people times 8.5 years, $170 million. That's the number. Now, give or take 10%, that's what they paid. And there's bonuses paid out, and obviously that stuff comes out of game profits, but the bonuses don't happen if the game doesn't sell. So that's on top of the development budgets are typically, 100,000 per developer per year. There's not much else in cost. I mean, the real estate as a percentage of the cost is nothing. A studio, what do you need to house 200 people? I mean, whatever, 10,000 square feet at, $50 a foot, it's nothing. I mean, it's a tiny, tiny, tiny piece of the development budget. Engines, PCs, servers, nothing, peanuts. So 100,000 per person per year is a good proxy. Ubisoft, unfortunately, pays less because they're located in lower cost countries and they have more people. So Ubisoft will have 400 people and they pay them $65,000. So it's 25 million per year instead of 20 because they're not as efficient as the other guys. So Ubi's average game is more like 80 million bucks. I think most publishers, again, Take-Two's a notable exception, would like to get games out every 2 to 3 years and they'd like them to be high quality, but most are willing to sacrifice 5 points, get an 80 or an 82 and get them out fast than trying to strive for a 90 and take an extra 2 years. They're not going to double their cost if they don't have to. Okay, last question this week from SIFTD from Rewind Replay. What do you think is the biggest factor that causes a video game company to go bankrupt? Is it poor game sales, bad business practices, or a series of unfortunate decisions? Yes, yes, and yes. Okay. Bankruptcy, which has happened a bunch, Acclaim, BAM, Midway, THQ, Atari sort of, I'd say Atari went bankrupt. IDOS bailed out before they went bankrupt. Is there any more? That might be it. Did I leave anybody else out?
I don't think so.
Okay, the technical definition of bankruptcy is when your liabilities exceed your assets. For those of you who didn't have accounting, assets are the stuff that you own. So it's your intellectual property, your real estate, your cash. Typically there's not much more than intellectual property, your library, but that's intellectual property. And liabilities are debt, primarily it's debt. So the fastest path to bankruptcy is borrow money. And companies that have no debt tend not to go bankrupt. Now, what ends up happening is, let's say you have no debt, but you lose money every year. Well, each year you lose money, what happens to your assets? They go down and down and down. And so you will get companies that are forced to sell their IP in order to stay in operation that are losing money. That was kind of THQ. So how do you get to where you're losing money? And that is the last two, bad business practices and a series of unfortunate decisions. The definition of profit is when your revenues are higher than your expenses. And so in order for you to generate a loss, your revenues are lower than your expenses. So a lot of companies who are doing poorly try to rein in expenses, and what happens when you cut your spending is the quality of your product tends to go down. That happened to THQ, that happened to Midway. And the bad business decision is that you decide to make games that cost a lot to make and they don't generate as much revenue as you expected. That's what happened to Acclaim. Remember Turok? They spent a lot on Turok and it didn't work. Remember U-Draw at THQ? It worked on the Wii, it didn't work on the Xbox and PlayStation. The interesting thing is that Acclaim used to make money at about 500 million in revenue. THQ couldn't make money at 900 million. So it's your cost structure, right? At 900 million, if you can't make money, then what are you doing in business? And again, I'm not dissing them. Take-Two doesn't make money if they're materially below 1.5 billion. But Take-Two makes really great games and they have franchises like NBA that are recurring revenue streams. So, everybody has their break-even threshold. Take-Two can support it because they have GTA, they have GTA Online, and so they do spend more, but they make better games and they're profitable above that. They're really profitable. This year they're going to do like 2.5 billion, 2.7 billion and make like $5 a share. So, you get leverage from that, but if games aren't going well, you got to find a way to make money at 900 million or you shouldn't be public. And so Acclaim couldn't make money at 500 million, Midway at 800 million, THQ at 900 million, they're gone. Atari probably was 500, 600 million. And it's hard, the business is expensive. As we said in an earlier question, games cost 60 million to make. If you spend 60 million in R&D, pretty much to be profitable, you need about 300 million in sales. That's just kind of the math behind marketing and overhead and all that. If you make a $60 million game and you only generate 60 million in revenue, problem. Remember Psychonauts from Acclaim? 92 rated Metacritic score, sold about 1 million copies. They didn't make any money on it. They lost money. Turok, for sure, they lost money. So, you know, Activision can have the occasional gun and not make money. So, you know, good companies make mistakes too. You know, EA made Black, remember that? And it was like, not good. Ubisoft made Haze. I mean, they all have a bad game occasionally. When you're really profitable, you can make a mistake. When you're really not profitable, one bad decision screws you. So the answer is bad decisions mostly. And, you know, you can't be in this business and do less than $1 billion. It's just not, it's not viable in the publishing business. Thank you for joining us on this week's Pachter Factor. If you're a SIFTD subscriber, thank you so much. If you are not and you have Amazon Prime, please link your Twitch account with your Prime account and then go to the SIFTD channel and subscribe to SIFTD so that we get $2.50 a month and Shane can stay in business. You got to renew that each month, but that's a one-click once you've done the linkage. If you're watching on YouTube and you're not a Prime member and you don't want to deal with SIFTD, please follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. I appreciate the support. Follow Shane at Tinfire, follow SIFTD at SIFTD Games, and we'll allow you to live for one more week. Thanks again for joining us. See you next week.